Okay, we're live. Here we are. It is 12 o'clock. Uh, Technically Saturday morning at this point. Um, Let me just put this up here before we go any further here. Nope. Right here. It's 9/23/2023, and this is my disclaimer for true crime because we're going to go over some true crime tonight. Um, just I didn't want to have to do this, but I figured with all the bullshit going on with the Delphi case at this point, guess I'll have to add my 2 cents. So let me play my intro, and I'll try to be right back. Actually, we'll do this first because kind of think it's fitting. All right. So let me play my intro, and I'll be right back. All right, so here we are. I was debating on whether or not to do this outside or inside. It's freaking freezing out. It's probably about 52 degrees out, 51, maybe 49. Who knows? Summer's over apparently. So let's see if we can try to. Like I said, I don't want to do this Delphi shit. I kind of starting to feel like this is very similar to like the Alex Murdoch case. You just want this case to go away, right? You just want there to be an answer. You want it to go away. But I don't know. I've been following this case for about 6 years or so, and just when you think it can't get any more bizarre, surprise, it gets more and more bizarre every single day. But what I want to do is I want to play some shit first, and then we'll go over some of the stuff that I guess I can only add my opinion. I can't really do too much else. But let's try to play some news. So we'll go do this first. Actually, this was 2 days ago. Yeah, we'll do this first, and then actually, hold on a second. I should be more prepared for this, but I'm not going to do that. All right, let's do this here. I'll share the screen. I hope this isn't the one with gray hues in it.
Unseasonably warm February day in 2017 in the small rural town of Delphi, Indiana, a place where everyone knows each other and they look out for each other. It's not a place where you worry when your teenage kids decide to go on an adventure. So when Abby Williams and her best friend Libby German decided to go on a hike near the Monon High Bridge in the middle of the day, no one thought it was dangerous. But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry and they began to search. Then the next day, the worst news possible. The bodies of these two girls were found, both victims of murder. After 5 frustrating years, this man, Richard Allen, was arrested for killing both girls. Allen admitted being in the area that day, and prosecutors say a bullet found at the scene was forensically connected to murder. After 5 frustrating years, this man, Richard Allen, was arrested for killing both girls. Allen admitted being in the area that day, and prosecutors say
This guy right here, okay? Remember this guy's face.
a bullet found at the scene was forensically connected to his gun. One problem: Abby and Libby were not shot. And now we're learning a lot more about the murders through documents filed in court by Allen's attorneys. Information that the defense suggests shows ritualistic killings connected to Odinism, an ancient Nordic religion allegedly followed.
I do want to say that um, this Odinism thing is not new. Uh, for me, anyways. I mean, this Odinist thing goes back, in this case, anyways. I remember hearing about this within the first year, and um, wasn't solid evidence. I guess it wasn't. It's just rumors. There's been, I don't know, you name it. When it comes to rumors, in this case, um, it's happened, and I just wanted to say that before we move on here. But this onistic thing, um, that doesn't come as a shock to me at all.
By some local white nationalists. They also say there is no way one man could have pulled off this double murder. Tonight, we examine the scene of the murders, the clues left behind, and the evidence connected to the victims as we continue to investigate the.
I mean, when you're talking about a 6-year investigation, um, you're going to have a lot of crazy rumors, right? Especially something as monumental as this case. I mean, this case here, arguably one of the most watched cases in history. So you're going to have, tons of rumors, but you know, uh, until you start getting some facts, until you start getting some uh, law enforcement coming out and saying things, you really brush it off like, I can't believe they're saying that. But you know, uh, once you start getting some people talking about it close to the case, now you have to start at least thinking about it.
The Delphi murders. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Another big hour here. Murders.
And to be honest with you, it's always been about these two kids, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. That's why I'm in it. And that's why I'm pretty sure most people are in it. It's because of these two kids. I mean, but we'll move on here. But this is the reason why people follow this case, because there's absolutely no reason for these two people here, kids, to have their life cut short so quickly.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Another big hour here as we take a closer look at the Delphi murder. So much more information now coming to light.
I mean, there's so many other cases that, go on every single day, right? What just happened? Having computer issues, sorry. But, you start following these cases, you get attached to them a little bit. I think that's why this case here has been in the news
This
and
is
on
looming
people's
large,
minds
and
for so long. It's one of those cases where you just can't put down. It follows you. But there are other cases that go on every single day. You follow, but for some reason, Delphi is just that one case that just doesn't want to go away.
Be continuing to talk about this every time we talk about the cases. Was this a ritualistic killing? Was this some sort of bizarre ritual that took place?
And my opinion has never changed in this case. I mean, it's kind of, I remember when the news came out. And, just like everybody, I thought, hey, within 48 hours, they should probably have somebody in custody. I mean, I never thought this case was going to be this complicated. I just don't get it. But from the very beginning, I could picture just one person doing this, a lone wolf psychopath.
It's that day.
And I really haven't changed that. I don't buy the Odinist thing, but who knows? It's just my opinion. My opinion doesn't really matter. It's going to come down to about 12 people, and their opinions are going to be the ones that matter.
And is it connected to Odinism? A word that was 1,000% foreign to me till about, just over 24 hours ago. Now we know it's this ancient Nordic religion that according...
And I've followed everybody reasonable in this case. I mean, from Grey Hughes all the way down to Bad Habits Kingdom to Rick Snay to Greeno to Cat to Who's Your Cold Case, who's a really good person. And I've pretty much kept with my opinion. I don't think that there could be that many people involved in this, but that's just my opinion.
According to the defense, has been hijacked by white nationalists, a group, and specifically some that are in Indiana, that this is somehow a racial, some sort of racist killing of these two girls? How do those pieces fit together? Does it fit together? And there's always two ways to look at this, and I want you to remember this always when the defense is putting out an alternative theory. Look at their theory and then just flip it on its head and imagine if what the defense is saying is the prosecution's case. And if what the prosecution is saying is the defense case, right? Because that's what would happen. If you turned around and as prosecutors, you went after the people that the defense says are responsible, is there more evidence against them? Or if that was the case, would you be looking at Richard Allen and saying, well, wait a minute, what about this guy, Richard Allen? That's the way I always analyze this. And I do that because I'm concerned about the truth. A defense attorney, that's not their job. Their job is to put the prosecution to the test to make sure they...
See, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with what he said. I don't agree with that. Actually, I should say I agree with half of what he said. I don't think the prosecution gives a shit about the truth either. The prosecution wants to get a conviction, period, whether it's the truth or not. They have compiled a boatload of evidence, boatload of discovery from law enforcement. And, the prosecution is there to make sure they have a good case against a suspect. It's a claim. If you bring forth a claim, especially an extraordinary claim, you have to provide extraordinary evidence to back that claim up. That's a prosecution's job. Now, I wasn't born yesterday. I don't think the prosecution gives a shit about the truth either. They just want to prove their case, just like the defense does. They want to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this guy didn't do this. And the prosecution wants to prove that this guy did this beyond a reasonable doubt. But I don't necessarily think the prosecution gives a shit about the truth either.
They proved their case beyond any reasonable doubt. But in terms of proving things and raising, they just raise doubts. That's part of their job, is to say there's reasonable.
Especially in this case, because, these days here, not like the old days of police work where you have, gumshoe detectives and they get some evidence, mostly circumstantial, fingerprint stuff, and they bring it to court. These days here, it's more of a forensics era where you need forensics to solidify a case. Just like, the Moscow murders, they got touch DNA. Is that going to be able to hold up? I don't know. But in this case here, and I've always said this is not going to be a DNA case because there's just so much shit going on at the crime scene. It was done outside. Those girls probably had a ton of DNA on them from just being in the car that day with Kelsey. So there's a ton of DNA out there, and separating that DNA and finding the exact DNA for the perpetrator, I just don't think it's that kind of a case. Now, they may have certain markers where they can exclude people but not include people. I have no idea, but I've always said this is not a DNA case. It's just not that. So they're going to have to find something else.
Alternative explanations. But are they better explanations than for what the prosecution is alleging? And how reasonable are they when you really look at them? And that's part of the analysis. Now, I don't know what the truth is here because we haven't seen all the evidence, but we now, tonight, as we sit here, have been privy to a lot more than we were before the defense filed these papers.
Okay, so let's stop that right there because I think it's important. And I'm going to bring this up here. Whoops. All right. So this here is the first glimpse we got into, factually, anyways. This is the Ron Logan document, and I pulled this out of my files here. It took me a few hours to find it because it was, buried. So this is the Ron Logan document. This was his search warrant thing here. And there's a couple of points I want to make out in this. This was the first glimpse here that we got into this entire crime scene thing. We had the Derek Erskine texts, and I'm going to bring those up too. Let me see if I can find what I'm looking for here. Okay, so this is the Ron Logan document. You can find this. I just punched in Ron Logan documents, but I had this in my files. So on February 14, 2017, at approximately 12:17 p.m., victims Louis German and Abby Williams were found dead. So this is the day they were found with wounds caused by a weapon on the property owned by Ron Logan. So what I'm saying is this is the first glimpse we had into the crime scene with documentation. And people went ballistic over this, and people are still talking about it to this day. But what Vinny was talking about here was the evidence and the newest documents that just came out from the defense kind of gives more of a glimpse into the actual crime scene. But this was the first that I can remember of actual documents that came out with any type of, because it's been a secretive case right from the beginning. Nobody's known anything. So this is the first official record. This was pulled by the FBI, I think. So we're assuming it's a sharp weapon or bladed weapon or something. A large amount of blood was lost by the victims at the crime scene. Because of the nature of the victim's wounds, it's nearly certain the perpetrator of the crime would have gotten blood all over his clothes. And this is pointing the finger at Ron Logan here. The location of the crime scene is approximately 1,400 feet from Logan's residence. So we didn't know this. Kind of expected this, but we didn't know this for 100%. And we'll go back to that. Hey, buddy, how are you? Oh, you working? It was an awesome video you posted today with the area of that crime scene. I think that's actually the first time I've ever seen the woods like that with that much foliage, to be honest with you. All right, so let's go back to I just wanted to show people this because I pulled this up. This was released in part by the murder sheet. So let's go back to this. But Vinny was talking about the crime scene stuff, and this is the first time that I remember seeing anything about the crime scene was in the Ron Logan document. So, nope, I don't want that. Right there. And we'll go back to the Ron Logan document in a minute.
Papers, and it was released. So I want to start here because this is extremely significant to me, which is what the victims.
So remember that we knew about the crime scene, the sharp or bladed instrument, and there was a lot of blood lost. And I'm going by the fact of this is coming from law enforcement, right? Whether it's true or not, I don't know. It's law enforcement putting this out. So
looked like at the scene and what was with them, because a lot of this, the defense says, and this is their theory again, that it's ritualistic, that it shows that something was done here purposely, and there's some message that is left behind at the scene. So let's take a look, based upon what the defense has filed here, what they are saying Abby and Libby appeared to look like. Now they have Libby lying flat.
So this is a graphic representation based on the defense memorandum. So this is a representation. This isn't the actual presentation. This is a representation. That's it. Okay. Sticks are not this straight. Okay. Especially around here. You'd be lucky to find a stick that has a foot or more straight to it. So just keep that in mind.
Flat on her back, left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of the large tree. Now,
and trees don't look like this. If anybody's ever seen a tree before, trees don't look round like this, but this is just a graphic representation of this whole positioning here.
You're looking at this depiction is what we put together based upon this memorandum. This actual image.
And I've noticed from Frosty's video today, they're all oak trees, looks like to me anyways, all hardwood. I didn't see any pine trees in there whatsoever. So it was February, so these branches probably wouldn't have had any leaves on them.
The image that you're looking at right now is not something that is part of any filing by anyone. We hear.
I mean, in the wintertime, you're not going to find a lot of branches with leaves on them. So just remember that too.
closing arguments based upon this description have put this together. Libby's right arm was placed along the side of her body. A large branch was placed on her left shoulder. The branch extended above Libby's head and below her legs. Two smaller branches formed a V where her legs joined. Both sides of the V extended upwards towards Libby's head. The branch extended across Libby's body on a line from her right shoulder to her left shoulder. Now, Abby. Just feet away from Abby, at an angle, Abby's legs are feet away from Libby's legs, their heads just a few feet apart. Abby was on her back, elbows were bent with her arms placed on her chest. Abby's left hand and arm near the left side of her face, right hand and arm near the right side of her face.
Okay, so I want to stop that again because I want to present this now. All of these things I think are fairly important. Okay, so we went over the Ron Logan document a little bit, but now we're going to go to these and I always have to keep coming back here because I always forget to show everybody this. So these were the David Erskine texts, right? These came out a while back, and people went absolutely nuts about these things. Apparently, this guy was a relative, and he came out with these texts for nobody knows why, but he kind of described a little of the crime scene. Now, I've never taken these things very seriously. Some people have. Regardless, I just wanted to show people these because there's some stuff in here that sounds okay from the latest documents. Some of Libby's clothes found in the creek under the bridge. Some of Libby's clothes were found in the creek under the bridge. Was this an attempt to wash away the forensic evidence? Sorry, hold on. Let's go with this one. So the coroner's report stated everything was over by 3:30. That's where the 3:30 thing came from. And I think somebody else might have mentioned that too. Let's go here. Okay, so here's what I wanted to show. They were not bounded. They were touching but not tied together. Abby was dressed, Libby was nude. So that's kind of right there, right, from the new documents. And I have those documents too, and I'll pull those up. But Abby, according to the new documents, was dressed in Libby's clothes. So this is not really accurate here. Libby's top half was covered with leaves and sticks. We don't know if that's true or not. We know that there was sticks now, like they were trying to cover her. And down here it says, I don't know why she was nude, but I read the coroner's report. I don't know how you would have read the coroner's report. The only DNA would be from Libby's fingernails. She fought like hell. So I don't know what to make from that. I don't think those texts were all that accurate now after looking at the the documents from the defense, which were documents actually from the prosecution. So I just wanted to show people that. In my opinion, they weren't accurate at all. But that's just my opinion. So we'll stop this and we'll go back to this video. Still there, buddy? I'd have you come up, but you're working.
Okay, there, a little bit of interpretation.
So in this image here, you know, there's no leaves whatsoever. But again, this is just a representation. So maybe there were leaves on some of these sticks. Maybe not. We don't know.
However you interpret that, that's how we are, but it could be different, but it's something like that, I would think. Abby's left leg was straight while her right leg was bent at the knee. Her bent right leg was under her left leg. 3 tree branches were placed on top of Abby in the shape of an asterisk.
And if you go over to the True Crime Web with Steve, and this is Steve, he does a great job of, he does a great job of presenting these things from experiments, and I highly recommend his channel.
Above Abby's head, smaller sticks placed over her hair, crudely mimicking horns or antlers.
I mean, he's pro law enforcement, understandably, but he's got a sensible mind. He's not going to sugarcoat things. Steve's a great guy.
So again, looking at this, we put that together based upon the description I read to you. Now, what I read to you is directly from the papers filed by the defense. So this is what...
But in a couple of minutes, I'm going to basically tell you why I don't think any of this shit really matters.
They are alleging the evidence says, based upon information they've gotten from investigators and the prosecution. So let's talk some more about this. Joining us right now in studio, co-host and producer of Down the Hill, the Delphi Murders podcast, and Court TV senior writer Barbara McDonald is with us. Barbara, let's start here, okay? You've seen different depictions of those stick formations that everyone's talking about now, these stick formations on the 2 girls. What have you seen? And let's begin with Abby.
All right, so I've been hearing about these stick formations and this image on the tree for a very long time, and very different characterizations than what's in this memorandum. Sources close to the investigation have provided me with drawings of what they say those images look like, the arrangement of those sticks. So let's start with the one of Abby, and it shows 3 sticks. Now, we have not placed her body here because this is how it was provided to me. We don't know exactly what the positioning on top of her was like, but this is supposed to be a representation of what the image looked like, the way the sticks were formed. Now let's put up the image from Libby, and there's 5 sticks involved here by my count. And you can look at these and decide if they look like something to you or look like they're randomly placed. I have spoken to many investigators who were on the scene at the time who say the assumption was they were randomly placed. They did not see a pattern. They didn't see intentionality there. The other interesting thing about these sticks, they did not collect them when they collected evidence from the crime scene.
Whoa, slow down. Sticks are placed on the bodies of the 2 victims here, and they're not collected as evidence?
They were not.
All right, so let's stop sharing this. I don't know what to take from this whole interview and thing here from Court TV. I think it's kind of sensationalism, but that's just my opinion. I don't take a lot of what the press serious, anyways, ever. All right, so we're going to go to, what are we going to go to now? Give me a second here. All okay, so I'm just going to read this because I don't know. All right, so this is coming from the documents that came out, and this is basically the crime scene here. Having trouble with my computer, sorry. Part 1, crime scene. Okay, so when members of the search party found the girls In the late morning, February 14, 2017, Abby and Libby had been missing for approximately 22 hours. Now, this is coming from the documents that were released part of the Franks hearing. The scene was ghoulish. Libby was found at the base of a tree with 4 tree branches of varying sizes intentionally placed in it. See, intentionally, I don't know if that's coming from prosecution or not, in a very specific and arranged pattern on her naked body. So these words here, intentionally, very specific and arranged, that could be just opinion. Libby was positioned flat on her back, so that could be true, with her left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of the large tree. Libby's right hand was covered in blood. Libby's left hand was covered in blood. So both hands were covered in blood. And again, this is going to be disturbing. So blood spots and blood drippings were seen all over Libby's body from head to tail. It appeared likely that Libby had been unalived at a nearby tree and then dragged to her final resting place, where she was then positioned before having the tree limbs placed on her very specific pattern. The murderers treated murderers, that's conjecture there. The murderer treated Abby very differently. Abby was found just a few feet away from Libby, so they were not touching. Her body was not placed parallel to Libby. So according to the Erskine text, they were touching. In this here, they weren't. And I'll believe this because most of this stuff is coming from the prosecution. But rather at an angle with Abby's legs just a few feet from Libby's legs. However, both of their heads were found a few feet farther apart from each other. Abby was not found at the base of a tree. Abby was fully clothed. In fact, Abby was dressed in Libby's sweatshirt and jeans. Now, there's a disparity of whether or not she was wearing jeans or sweatpants. No blood appeared on Abby's clothing at all, meaning that she was likely murdered while naked and then dressed by the murderers after she expired. So again, here, she was likely murdered while naked. So I just wanted to show the disparity here between the Erskine texts and the actual crime scene, because this is the really first glimpse we've had into the crime scene to where they're talking about the body placements. And the Ron Logan document didn't kind of do that. It didn't do that at all, in fact. And in the Erskine texts, take them for what they are. I'll read them again to you. They were not bounded. They were touching but not tied together. And that's not true because this document says that's not true. Libby's top half was covered with leaves and sticks. And we know now that she was naked. So this is wrong. And this says the Erskine text says leaves and sticks. We don't know if there were leaves and sticks or not because all we have is a I'll close this down here. Sorry, I couldn't bring that up, but it's in a different file, and I don't feel like fucking around with that right now. So, but there's big disparities between the Erskine texts and the actual documents coming from the prosecution in the defense motion, and some of that stuff doesn't jive. Some of that stuff doesn't seem realistic at this point. So let's go back to the video. These are important parts to this whole dilemma.
Not collected as evidence until several weeks later, conceivably when this Odinism stuff.
And, again, this case has been a monumental disaster from the beginning. And, I try really hard not to bash law enforcement, and I probably never will. But in this case here, right from the very beginning of this case, there has been mistakes that you can't, you just can't look past. The very day of the search, not calling in dogs, calling off the search at night. Who does that? It's just been a barrel of laughs, really, on two dead victims, and it's just, and we'll get into more of that in a little while.
Started to arise within the investigation, and they went back to try to collect those.
I know nobody's infallible, right? People make mistakes, and mistakes are going to be made. But in this case here, the mistakes that were made were critical. You're not just talking about, mistake, hey, I put the wrong thing in the wrong place. These mistakes were crucial, I think.
Sticks. Now, the other thing we have
and some of the mistakes were intentional. The sealing of the PCA. I don't understand why they did that. I just don't. But it might come back to haunt them.
Image of is what was depicted on the tree, and it's just.
I was completely against sealing the PCA. The prosecution had no reason to do that. None. Period. Absolutely none.
Described in this memorandum as being the letter F, a rune painted in blood.
Blood, right?
It's
just my opinion in this. That to me does not look like an F. Sorry.
Tested according to the memo. It's Libby's blood.
Okay.
According to the memo.
That's what the defense is saying.
Yes. I have not heard that part of it from my sources, but I was given a rendering of what the blood on the tree, or whatever the substance on the tree appeared to be.
So they did test this, and it was Libby's blood. So, that.
And
that's what we're looking at right now.
This is more accurate. Several of the investigators told me they thought that it was a perhaps partial handprint of the person who committed the crime, leaned up against the tree, and that's how it was.
I've changed my mind. I thought that might have been a handprint at first too. That's not a handprint.
Was placed there.
All right, let's put it back up. Let's put that back up. This is significant. This is important.
Now, I don't think a handprint can do this. This looks like blotting here. In my personal opinion. But
the defense is saying this is the letter F.
Yes. Now we also have a second image where we have placed that rune.
If anything, it looks like the letter E.
The F image over this, and you can decide for yourself if it looks like the exact same image or not. Again, many investigators thought that it was a handprint.
Who writes an F like this, right? When you write an F, it's more F. I don't know, this.
Or something that was just done during the commission of the crime and not intentionally placed there. But just like the sticks, Vinny, this was not taken as evidence. The tree was not cut down.
All I'm saying is, just when you think things can't get more bizarre in the Delphi case, right? I remember the red Jeep. Nobody's talking about the red Jeep anymore. I remember the red Jeep with all the clowns jumping out of it, and Tony Klein and Keegan Klein. Keegan Klein's waiting for his father to get back. They haven't even gone over the drug angle yet. Wait till they get to the drug angle.
Down, the bark was not removed. It was left at the scene, photographed, swabbed.
Everything was photographed, though, right? The scene had to be photographed at a minimum. At a minimum.
But you would think,
yeah,
at least the bark, from what I've heard, at least the bark should have been taken, if not that chunk of the tree.
Well, if they're saying it's Libby's blood, then someone would have to taken a sample of the blood, right?
All right, let's stop that there. I'm going to go back to the Ron Logan document for a minute here. All right, see, here's the Ron Logan document again. So here it says this was done by the FBI. So this is a Ron Logan document. Liberty German and Abigail Williams were presumed to have made contact with the unknown male on the bridge to BG at approximately 2:13. So remember that, 2:13. And I think this was a mistake. His voice is not inconsistent with that of a person on the video, but I have to go by what they put here. Inconsistent. It's not inconsistent, so that means it could be him. But in my opinion, that's not Ron Logan's voice. And down here it says it was discovered that the blah 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 of one of the victims was missing from the crime scene while the rest of the clothing was recovered. So it was some part of clothing. And even here it says it also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged. So from the new documents, that seems to be accurate. They were moved and staged, especially Libby. So based on training and expertise, and common perpetrators of this type usually take a souvenir or memorialize the crime scene with videos, cameras, or whatever. You know, sick people do sick things. And here it says Liberty German and Abby Williams had no visible signs of struggle or fight. So that kind of rules out the Erskine text too. So it says there were unknown fibers and identified hairs, which may be used later for comparison with similar hairs and fibers. So all the stuff they took from Richard Allen's house, right? And this is all about, Ron Logan's alibi. Trying to find. So he was at the transfer station between 11:53 and 11:58. Okay, so this is what I want here. The call placed using Logan's cell phone produced cell tower data that shows Logan's cell phone appears to be in or around his property on February 13, 2017 at 2:09. Although his exact location cannot be confirmed, the tower data shows that Logan's cell phone was in the Delphi area, in the area of the Monon High Bridge Trail. Okay. So we'll go back to this in a couple minutes. But I have to also put that in here. This is the map that I did here. Hopefully people can see it. And this is the time frames I have. This is the important stuff we're going to discuss later, but I have to put in here that Ron Logan was in the area at 2:09. Remember that. So I guess my point is, how he didn't hear anything is bizarre, to say the least.
Yes.
You think? Okay.
According to the memo, they say the DNA testing shows that it is her blood.
This is, what to make of this, right? It seems like there's more to it. There's a reason you're putting the sticks there. They're put there purposely, whether they mean something, whether they are these secret codes and some Odinistic type of meaning.
See, this is the thing, it's easy to play armchair quarterback here, but you're getting, I don't know, 30,000 tips, right? You got to look into all these tips. You got to look into all these angles. And we know that the prosecution had a problem getting all of the discovery to the defense because there's just so much of it. I think this is a really big attempt for the defense to dig into the discovery and pick out what they want and run with it. There's thousands of pages, hundreds of files. You can't imagine how many pages and pieces of discovery they sent, right? So there's a lot. I can guarantee you there's thousands of hours of monitoring Keegan Klein, monitoring Tony Klein, monitoring Ron Logan. There's so much discovery in there. And I think what the defense is doing here is they're taking a portion of this discovery of this whole ritual thing and running it with it because law enforcement probably didn't follow up with it.
Meaning is really the question, right?
It was characterized to me as being perhaps an abandoned effort to cover the bodies.
Okay, I get that. All right, stay where you are. Joining us now in Delphi, Indiana, podcaster Gray Yu.
Let's just look forward to perhaps a...
Which is what we need in this case,
Right.
and apparently don't have.
And don't have the DNA.
So I want to hear that right there.
No, I agree.
There's no way.
I agree.
Otherwise, the phone would never be there.
Right.
And what about the bullet, though? There's a problem with the bullet, I think, for prosecutors here.
I've heard about the bullet for many years, and I have never heard a definitive theory from my sources that it does come from the suspect. One speculation was that maybe it comes from law enforcement. It was the same caliber as they use. And as you know, ejection mark testing is not as reliable as a bullet that's been fired.
It's not DNA.
Right.
It's definitely not DNA.
Which is what we need in this case, and apparently don't have.
And don't have the DNA. Gray, what are your thoughts about that? The fact that the bullet is found there. Is the defense going to try? The defense may try to say that Richard Allen's being framed, or it's just a coincidence that it's.
All right, I don't need to watch any more Gray Hughes. So let's go. I want to go here to this one instead. This one right here.
February day in 2017 in the small rural town of Delphi, Indiana, a place where everyone knows.
That was basically the end of that whole court TV thing. I just wanted to hit on a few points there, especially the points that Barbara McDonald made. And according to her, there's no DNA whatsoever. I don't know how true that is, but again, I don't trust anything the press says.
Each other,
very little,
and they look out for each other. It's not a place where you worry when your teenage kids decide to go on an adventure. So when Abby Williams and her best friend Libby German decided to go on a hike near the Monon High Bridge in the middle of the day, no one thought it was.
I just want everybody to know that I'm out here freezing my cojones off for everybody because it's freaking freezing out here. And when I do Delphi, I have to smoke and drink coffee. So that's what I do. It's all for a good cause. Oh, wait a minute. I should do this. Hold on a second. I don't want that. Give me a second here. All right. Back to crime.
Dangerous. But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up,
So I just want to show people something.
best friend Libby German decided to go on a hike near the
This image right here is how I figured out how tall the person was who attacked these two girls, or at least Bridge Guy. Because from this image here, especially this tree right here, now Abby was 5'4". Okay, and if you blow this image up, she's probably about 5'8" because her hair's up. But if you look at Bridge Guy, from the infamous Bridge Guy photo on the bridge, he isn't 6 inches taller than her. There's just no way. It's just not going to happen. So I could tell right away that this guy was fairly short. I said 5'8", 5'9", but I was wrong too. He's even shorter than that. But if she's 5'4", standing here, and you go down the bridge a little bit ways, you see him. He's not going to be. He was definitely under 5'10". There's no doubt in my mind. So, and he looked like he had really small feet. So it's not. He wasn't going to be taller than 5'10". Wasn't happening.
Mountain High Bridge in the middle of the day, no one thought it was dangerous. But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry, and they began.
If that would have been Ron Logan or Tony Klein, especially Tony Klein, or Keegan Klein would have looked like a stump out there, walking.
And to search. Then the next day, the worst news possible. The bodies of these two girls were found, both victims of murder. After 5 frustrating years, this man, Richard Allen, was arrested for killing both girls. Allen admitted being in the area that day, and prosecutors say a bullet found at the scene was forensically connected to his gun.
And I think this woman right here, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's this woman right here that actually found the tip.
Say a bullet found at.
Because in my opinion, if they don't find that tip, this case goes cold forever. They were clueless at that point. They had no clue, nothing. They had absolutely no knowledge of who did this at all.
The scene was forensically connected to his gun. One problem: Abby and Libby were not shot. And now we're learning a lot more about the murders through documents filed in court by Allen.
And I think that's why they sealed the PCA, because they wanted to tie up some loose ends with the Keegan Klein stuff. They wanted to make sure that he had no involvement in this whatsoever, and that's why they closed it. And that's why they said there could be more actors involved. That's just my opinion.
Allen's attorneys, information that the defense suggests shows ritualistic killings connected to Odinism, an ancient Nordic religion allegedly followed by some local white nationalists. They also say there is no way one man could have pulled off this double murder. Tonight, we examine the scene of the murders, the clues left behind, and the evidence connected to the victims. Examine the scene.
Okay, so this is a good representation of, actually, this is the crime tape here, I think. So, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but you see sticks and stuff's all over the place. I mean, but if you look at some of the sticks in here, there's absolutely no leaves on any of these sticks. There can't be. This is wintertime, and foliage is gone, pretty much gone. So it's going to be really hard to find a stick here with some leaves on it. And there's no pine trees here, so they're not going to have any needles on anything. So pine needles.
The murders, the clues left behind, and the evidence connected to the victims as we continue to investigate the Delphi murders. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Another big hour here as we take a closer look at the Delphi murders. So much more information now coming to light through these.
This guy was just at CrimeCon. I watched some of his shit today. I didn't like this guy at first, but he's growing on me. But again, these guys got a budget to meet and stuff like that. So, they eventually all turn into sensationalism at some point.
Papers that were filed by the defense. But let's remind you, this crime scene, absolutely brutal. Brutal. If you're a family member, one of the
Well, yeah, I mean, they weren't playing tiddlywinks out there. It was a crime scene, for God's sakes.
Parents, grandparents, loved ones of these
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
2 girls, you have to be absolutely horrified about what has now become publicly revealed and is part of this case. But the defense is saying everything that is being revealed helps them, proves that someone else is responsible for this, not Richard Allen, the man who's been accused. So the question really is, for everyone involved and ultimately for those 12 jurors who will make the decision here and tell us what happened, what does the evidence say? What does this evidence?
So here we go, right? That's basically what it's going to come down to. I mean, everybody's opinion in this case means absolutely nothing. Very little my opinion. Anybody who has an opinion in this case that isn't on the jury of 12, their opinion is, I don't want to say it's useless, but it is. It's fairly useless. This is going to come down to facts, no facts, if it goes to trial. Now, with that said, the way the prosecution and the way law enforcement handled this case has every possibility of not going to trial, especially if, some of the rumors out there are true. And I'm just going to put that in there because I agree with some creators that say, it's really, really hard to trust anything anybody says in this case. And if that's the case, then this case is not going to be going to trial at all.
Mean. Evidence speaks, not literally, but it tells a story. And when this becomes a murder trial, which it's on its way to being a trial, that evidence has to tell the story. And will this story be that Richard Allen is the one responsible, or is the story, wait a minute, this doesn't look like.
And I go back to the live I did last week about Alex Murdaugh, everybody thought and hoped that after March, after the guilty verdict and after 7 weeks of fucking trial and listening to that piece of shit, oh my God, right? Like, nobody ever wanted to hear from that guy again, ever. He's a piece of crap. Everybody knows he murdered his wife and kid. But, you can't stop stupid, man. Some idiot clerk at court decided she was going to get involved in the case, and everybody's going to have to sit through it all over again. And, that's the exact same shit is happening in this case, right?
Richard Allen did it.
And you just want answers for the family, I guess, right? You just want somebody to be charged with this. Anybody, I don't care. Somebody who's guilty of this should be charged, right? But the way the prosecution and law enforcement's going and the way they handled this case, it's up in the air,
This looks like something completely different. And tonight we're going to look at this evidence and try to figure out what it's telling us now, what we are learning and what has been revealed. One of the questions
I
that
tried
the defense is throwing out there was this?
I try not to get involved in these cases once they get into the courts because again, my opinion means absolutely nothing. Uh, Hopefully they have a trial. Hopefully they go and have enough evidence to convict somebody who's guilty, right? But once this shit comes out, it's really hard to stand by and not talk about it because, you want justice for the families, justice for the victims, but um, it's just appalling.
This is a one-man job. And they're saying no, that everything suggests that it could not have been Richard Allen alone committing this crime. Now,
Well, who the fuck was it? I mean, I don't think it's the prosecution's responsibility to prove other suspects were involved. They got this guy. So this guy here either better start talking, or if this does go to trial, there's a good chance that he could get the death penalty. So if he wasn't alone in doing this, he needs to start talking.
they're not conceding that he's there and he got a helper. No, they're saying completely different people, a different group is responsible. But you have to look at all the facts at the scene and the circumstances surrounding what happened to Abby and Libby that day. And could one man by himself pull this off? We're going to address that question tonight on this program. Also, and this is looming large, and we'll be continuing to talk about this every time we talk about the cases, was this a ritualistic killing? Was this some sort of bizarre ritual that took place that day? And is it connected to Odinism? Oh.
So I did it again. Anyways, yeah. So basically what I was saying is the way everything's been handled in this case and all of this shit is just absolutely incredible. And yeah, we'll keep it going.
A word that was 1,000% foreign to me till about, just over 24 hours ago. Now we know it's this ancient Nordic religion that, according to the defense, has been hijacked by white nationalists.
All right. So let's go back here and pull this up here. No, I don't want to do that. So we got this, okay? And this is what I came up with a while back. I got to add Ron Logan onto here, but so we have the timelines. You have supposedly Rich and Allen on the bridge. And in my opinion, that's pretty close in the timeline. They get out of the car at 149. They start and talk about the sweatshirts for a little while. They get on the trail at 150, 151. They get to the bridge, head about 156, 157. And in my opinion, the crime scene is important, but it's not critically important in this case, because all the prosecution has to do is basically prove, or beyond a reasonable doubt anyway, the abduction, right? So let's go here to I wonder if I can pull this up. So I have that somewhere. What did I do with that? I got so many files here. Oh, I think I know where it is. Oh, we'll play the video and I'll see if I can find it.
Group, and specifically some that are in Indiana, that this is somehow a racial, some sort of racist killing of these two girls? How do those pieces fit together? Does it fit together? And there's always two ways to look at this, and I want you to remember this always when the defense is putting out an alternative theory. Look at their theory and then just flip it on its head and imagine if what the defense is saying is the prosecution's case. And if what the prosecution is saying is the defense case, right? Because that's what would happen. If you turned around and as prosecutors, you went after the people that the defense says are responsible, is there more evidence against them? Or if that was the case, would you be looking at Richard Allen and saying, well, wait a minute, what about this guy, Richard Allen? That's the way I always analyze this. And I do that because I'm concerned about the truth. A defense attorney, that's not their job. Their job is to put the prosecution to the test to make sure they prove their case beyond any reasonable doubt. But in terms of proving things and raising, they just raise doubts. That's part of their job, is to say there's reasonable alternative explanations. But are they better explanations than for what the prosecution is alleging? And how reasonable are they when you really look at them? And that's part of the analysis. Now, I don't know what the truth is here because we haven't seen all the evidence, but we now, tonight, as we sit here, have been privy to a lot more than we were before the defense filed these papers and it was released. So I want to start here because this is extremely significant to me, which is what the victims looked like at the scene and what was with them. Because a lot of this, the defense says, and this is their theory again, that it's ritualistic, that it shows that something was done here purposely and there's some message that is left behind at the scene. So let's take a look, based upon what the defense has filed here, what they are saying Abby and Libby appeared to look like. Now they have Libby lying flat on her back, left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of the large tree. Now, what you're looking at, this depiction, is what we put together based upon this memorandum. This actual image that you're looking at right now is not something that is part of any filing by anyone. We here at Closing Arguments, based upon this description, have put this together. Libby's right arm was placed along the side of her body. A large branch was placed on her left shoulder. The branch extended above Libby's head and below her legs. Two smaller branches formed a V where her legs joined. Both sides of the V extended upwards towards Libby's head. The branch extended across Libby's body on a line from her right shoulder to her left shoulder. Now, Abby. Just feet away from Abby, At an angle, Abby's legs are feet away from Libby's legs, their heads just a few feet apart. Abby was on her back, elbows were bent with her arms placed on her chest. Abby's left hand and arm near the left side of her face, right hand and arm near the right side of her face. Okay, there, a little bit of interpretation, however you interpret that. That's how we are, but it could be different, but it's something like that, I would think. Abby's left leg was straight while her...
All right, let's see if we can do this now. Stop screen. Present. All. Okay. Well, I'm going to read this because I think it's very, very important. So, okay. So we're going to go here again. Put this up here. This is the map. Okay. Okay, so this is coming from the PCA that was released back in, I think it was November. Okay, so we're going to start right here. Investigators spoke with Betsy Blair, that's witness 4, correct? Who advised she was on the trails on February 13th, 2017. Okay. Now I'm going to go back here to this. And basically in Indiana, what they charge Rich and Allen with is murder 1, right? And they don't necessarily have to prove anything past the abduction point, in my opinion. So this is why I did this whole chart here, because the problem with witness statements is they're unreliable, and the only way you can bypass witness statements is math, right? So, okay, so this is what we got. We got investigators spoke with Betsy Blair, who advised she was on the trails on February 13th, 2017. Video from the Hoosier Harbor store captured Betsy's vehicle traveling eastbound at 1:46 toward the entrance across from the Mears farm. Betsy advised she saw 4 juvenile females. Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1 doesn't freaking matter. Okay, it doesn't matter what she saw. She saw some juveniles walking on the bridge over Old State Road 25, where she was driving underneath on her way to the park. Okay, this is just to establish the timeline. So we got 1:46. Okay, Betsy advised she saw 4 females. She could have seen 3 juvenile females all wearing Christmas tree for ornaments, right? Doesn't matter. It's the timeline here. 1:46. Betsy advised there were no other cars parked across from the Mears farm when she parked. Betsy advised that there were no other cars parked across from the Mears farm when she parked. She advised she walked to the Monon High Bridge and observed a male matching the one from victim 2's video. She described the male she saw as a white male wearing blue jeans and a blue jean jacket. She advised he was standing on the first platform on the Mona High Bridge, approximately 50 feet from her. Okay, so some people are going to run with this and say, well, she didn't see him, she saw somebody else. Okay, she saw somebody standing there, and that was at after 1:46. Okay. She advised approximately halfway between the bridge and the parking area across the Mears farm, she passed 2 girls walking towards the Monon High Bridge. Okay. And they believe that was victim 1 and victim 2. Video from the Hoosier Harbor store shows at 1:49 p.m. Okay, there's another timeline, 1:49 p.m. A white car matching Kelsey's vehicle traveling away from the entrance across from the Mears farm. So these timelines are important, right? Okay, so now we're going to go to, this is all in the PCA. You can read this stuff yourself. This actually came out after the last court appearance too. There's like 3 or 4 different versions of this. Investigators reviewing prior tips encountered a tip narrative from an officer who interviewed Richard M. Allen in 2017. The narrative stated Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 and 15:30. So that's the timeline there. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the Freedom Bridge. So he's stating this. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. Okay. So if you go back up to the top where we read about the 3 females, 4 females, 3 females wearing Christmas decorations, doesn't matter. They both saw each other. He noted one was taller, one had brown and black hair. So this is all to establish the timeline, right? He walked to from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. So we know from his statement that he walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He could have seen, doesn't matter what he saw at this point, because he said he was on the trail, he was on the bridge. Now, whether or not this was coaxed or whatever, we don't know. Okay, now we're going to go down here to fast forward 6 years, almost 6 years. On October 13th, 2022, Richard Allen was interviewed again by investigators. So this is last year. They brought him in and interviewed him again. He advised that he was on the trails on February 13th, 2017. Okay. He stated he saw juvenile girls on the trails east of Freedom Bridge, and then he went on to the Monon High Bridge. Richard Allen further stated he went on to the Monon High Bridge to watch the fish. So this is his statements. Later in his statement, he said he walked to the first platform on the bridge. So he puts himself on the bridge. He stated he then walked back and sat on a bench on the trail and then left. Okay? He left. He's going to have to come up with an alibi, in my opinion, because saying you left and actually leaving is 2 different things. He told investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. He advised he may have been wearing some type of head covering as well. He claimed further he saw no one else except for the juvenile girls he saw east of the Freedom Bridge. Okay, let me read that again. He further claimed that he saw no one else. No one else. No one else. Not the victims, not Betsy Blair, nobody. He advised he may have been wearing some type of head covering. He told investigators he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. Blue jeans, blue or black jacket with a hood. That's from his statements. That's him. That's what he said. Okay, now if he didn't say that, it's different. But from the PCA, that's what he said. Okay, so if you look at the timeline here, I have it all set up. I have to put Ron Logan out here somewhere at 2:09. But if you go through this timeline, the math timeline, 1:46, 1:49, 2 o'clock when she took the image of the bridge, and I'll show that because I've shown it a million times. Oops. I don't want that. Okay, so this is the image of the bridge that she took right here. Okay, again, if you blow this up like I've blown this up a million times, there's nobody down here. Okay, there's nobody down here. You can download this image and zoom this in. There's nobody here, and we know from everybody that's walked across this bridge, it takes at least 3 to 5 minutes to walk this bridge. Okay. Here's the second image she took. She's out here on this platform, taking this image back this way. There's no one here. Nobody. There's nobody here. Nobody at all. Okay. Nobody. And then there's Richard Allen. So in this image here, he's probably about 60 feet away from her. So if you do the math of this entire timeline, nope. All of these timelines add up. And if you take these timelines and put them all together, there could only be one person in this area because he himself said he didn't see anybody else. So who else is out here? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. So, in my opinion, he's going to have to come up with an alibi. And he very well could. I don't know. Now, this is just my opinion again. I wasn't there. I don't know. But I do know that mathematics don't lie. You can't lie about math. If they have this timeline down, and if all of these things are true from the affidavit, the PCA, there can only be one person on that bridge at the time. And we do know that they have 43 seconds of video. So if you go back here to this image here, he's about 60 feet away from them. So they do have him approaching Libby 60 feet away from her, ordering them to go down the hill. That's all they have to prove. That's all they have to prove is that he ordered them to go down the hill and that he was the guy on the bridge, period. There could be a circus over there at the crime scene. It's not important. What's important is that this guy in this timeline, oops, is on this bridge. And as far as I'm concerned, with the timestamps on Libby's phone, with his own statements, he puts himself right there. Okay, that's now people could have lied. People have been coaxed into lies. That's up for debate, right? So let's go back to the video, and then we'll go to the tropics, and then I'll get out of here.
was bent at the.
The only thing that I have a problem with in this whole thing is Ron Logan. And I can't, in my mind, anyways, I can't get past him lying, creating an alibi to not be there at the time frame. His cell phone pings, because we know he was there at 2:09. We know he was somewhere around the property at 2:09. We know that. It's in the document. What was he doing? He could have been doing nothing. It could be nothing. Could be a nothing burger. But I just can't get past those cell phone pings and what he was doing out there. I just can't. I don't think he had anything to do with the crimes themselves. But you have two people being murdered on his property, and he doesn't hear anything if he's outside. I find that hard to believe.
Knee. Her bent right leg was under her left leg. 3 tree branches were placed on top of Abby in the shape of an asterisk.
I mean, I grew up in the country, so, if there's something happening in the woods, I know exactly where it's happening. And that time of the year in February when there's no foliage, sound travel's pretty good. I don't care if you're going up hills or not, sound travel's pretty good. And I just find it hard to believe that if he's outside, he can't hear anything.
Above Abby's head, smaller sticks placed over her hair, crudely.
I mean, from his own words, people are on his property all the time. So he was aware of people being on his property. So he must have heard something, sticks breaking underneath, people being killed, leaves crunching. You can't tell me he didn't hear anything. He's only 1,400 feet away. That's not that far.
Mimicking horns or antlers. So again, looking at this, we put that together based upon the description I read to you. Now, what I read to you is directly from the papers filed by the defense. So this is what they are alleging the evidence says, based upon information they've.
But I'll go back to what I said. I usually try to defend law enforcement as much as I possibly can, and for the most part, but people make mistakes. I get it. I get the fact that people make mistakes. I get the fact that this is a murder investigation, and there's going to be mistakes. I mean, it's just the way it is, especially in a 6-year investigation. But in this case here, it's just been a complete catastrophe for law enforcement, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not just talking about the local police there in Delphi. I'm not just talking about Carroll County, even though, they're pretty much inept. They just are. They're just horrible. But it's everybody involved. Not calling the dogs in at a search, right? Calling the search off. The second sketch that probably just blew everybody's mind. I mean, it blew my mind. I know that. Like, oh my God. The lost tip. And there's reason to believe that they didn't take images of the bullet they extracted from the ground out there, that, when they collected it. So, I mean, it's just, I can't believe an investigation. They didn't take the sticks. You just can't make this stuff up. It's just.
Gotten from investigators and the prosecution. So let's talk some more about this. Joining us right now in studio, co-host and producer of Down the Hill.
Doug Carter, right? Doug Carter saying, we're going to combine the two sketches. And I mean, I don't know. It's just absolutely crazy. It just is. It's beyond, every week there's a new thing. It's all right. So let's see here. We'll go here and play this one here. So this is coming from ABC News. I'm sure they're losing their brains on this too. There we go. Then we'll check the Tropics and we'll get out of here.
Murders case, defense attorneys claiming investigators withheld evidence to get a search warrant for Richard Allen, the suspect now accused of murdering 2 Indiana girls in 2017. They say the girls were killed by a pagan cult. Dan Abramson standing by, but first, Alex Perez is in Delphi with the very latest for us. Good morning, Alex.
Hey, good morning, Robin. Richard Allen has been in custody for nearly a year. In this latest motion, his attorneys make some explosive allegations and argue someone else killed Abby and Libby.
This morning, a new twist in the Delphi double murders. Defense attorneys for suspect Richard Allen claiming members of a pagan religious group linked to white nationalists are behind the 2017 murders of Abby Williams and Libby German, not their client. Allen's attorneys filing a 136-page motion on Monday where they claim the girls were ritualistically sacrificed by members of a pagan Norse religion called Odinism.
See, that's an extraordinary claim right there, right? So they're going to need some extraordinary evidence for that.
An angle they say investigators explored early on, but abandoned only a few weeks after the girls were murdered.
They're headed towards trying to damage the government's case through showing a theory where their client didn't do it.
The bodies of the 2 friends were discovered near this Indiana trail on Valentine's Day of 2017. Authorities recovering this image from Libby's phone believed to show their murderer, along with this audio recording. The defense's motion alleging disturbing new details.
I also have to give a shout out to Chris Todd. Chris Todd is an absolute idiot.
Details about the crime scene, claiming an obscene amount of evidence links the Odinite group to the murders, and claiming Allen has no affiliation with the pagan group. But prosecutors allege an unspent bullet discovered near the bodies links Allen to the crime.
Every crime, no matter how bizarre, no matter how many things, artifacts, structuring of bodies, how they were killed.
At the famous press conference in 2019, Doug Carter finally came out and said, this is one person. What you're hearing is not 2 people. It's one person. Okay? Go back and watch that. Now, whether or not Doug Carter is lying there and there are 2 people, I highly doubt.
All of that stuff's important.
The voice you are hearing is one person, not 2 people. One person.
But you still have to place people at the crime scene. And in this case, the defendant, they've been able to place at the crime scene.
One person, not 2 people, not 5 people, not 6 people, one person.
Allen admitted to authorities he was on the trail the day of the murders, but has pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors say he has confessed to the murders multiple times while in custody, but his attorneys argue that's unreliable because of his deteriorating mental health.
And the defense is also calling for a special hearing alleging a search warrant was improperly obtained. Allen is due to stand trial in January. Guys?
All right, Alex, thank you very much. And again, we continue to think of Abby and Lily's loved ones. Let's go bring in our ABC News chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, right now. What do you make of this? You read it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating narrative, right, where they lay out all the possible reasons why it could be this cult and all the rituals and the way that the bodies were found, et cetera. But this is really more the kind of argument you hear at trial when a defendant is saying, why didn't they investigate this? Or why didn't they investigate that? What it doesn't address is the evidence.
So, you know, again, going back to what I was saying before I was muted. Look, they're gonna have to answer for this. They're gonna have to do something, right? But going all the way back to the PCA, you know, when they finally arrested somebody and they sealed the PCA for like 30 days, I was adamant. Like, why are they sealing the PCA? Why are they doing that? You're just adding fuel to the fire. You're just at that point, you're making it seem like you're hiding something. You got the PCA release it, and ever since they sealed that PCA, this has been nothing but a nightmare of just, and then they gag everything. It's I hate gag orders and I hate sealing PCAs. It doesn't help at all.
Against him, right? They're talking about
The way social media is, if they're gagging things to prevent tainting a jury, it's not going to happen because people are just going to speculate anyways. And unfortunately, these days, these trials are held in public opinion. I don't care what anybody says because you can't keep people quiet. You just can't. People have the freedom of speech. And any little tidbit that comes out in these cases, because the prosecution leaks things too, man. If you don't believe that, I don't know what to tell you. This was a clever move by the defense here, period.
about what other evidence that they might have found, they could have found, they should have focused on, and they don't really address.
I mean, we don't know anything about this guy. Nothing. We don't even know. It's just amazing, right? They had 6 years to investigate this, and immediately when they have a probable cause affidavit, they seal it. You got to be kidding me.
A lot the evidence against him, and as you heard it there in the piece, which is this bullet, the fact that he's placing himself at the scene, and the confessions.
So they're not likely to succeed.
And now, now you have these accusations by the defense from the prosecution's own discovery, right? Like I said, I usually try to stick up for law enforcement, and because I, in my opinion, I think they got the right guy, but it doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. It comes down to 12 people, and if they can convince one juror, man, this case.
Not likely is a legal matter. So the key legal argument here is the search warrant should have been invalid because there were things that were wrong. They're saying that the investigators lied, but you can't.
You had the judge recuse himself. It's just why? Why did the judge recuse himself? All these questions, right? And then they sealed the PCA, right? Maybe he didn't want to, sign the PCA. They made him do it. Who knows? Conspiracy theories, but it's their own freaking fault.
Just throw out everything you find in a search warrant because there were mistakes made, right? The color of the jacket, was it mud versus blood, etc. You have to show that there was some.
In my opinion, the muddy, bloody witness is that person's obsolete anyways. Nobody cares, because all they have to do is prove the abduction. They don't have to prove anything at the crime scene. And if the prosecution gets into those waters, it's not going to be a good case for the prosecution. It's just not.
Level of intentional conduct by the investigators to try to fool the court. That's a very high standard.
And there are some horrifying details in this document that we did not know about before. But how does this all play into the case against Allen?
Yeah, so the first thing he's going to have to do at a trial is address the evidence against him. If he can somehow pose doubt about that.
His own statements are what's going to get this guy, though. His own statements about being on the bridge in 2017 and in 2022, because he reiterated the statements. I just read it for everybody, that he was out there in blue jeans, a blue jacket, and he didn't see anybody else. Now, if they're lying about that, then this case is going by the wayside. But
then some of this other stuff becomes potentially interesting. But think about it. In so many high-profile cases, we have seen theories, right, that have been presented about, drug dealers who actually did it, about Satanists who.
They had the same thing with OJ, and I think they were trying to do the same thing in the Alex Murdaugh case, the drug cartel. They'll come up with every theory, But like I said, extraordinary claims, you need extraordinary evidence. This case here, this case here, there was rumors about this whole drug thing with Derek German, and wait till they get to that.
Who actually did it, etc. you got to start from the point of what's the evidence against my client. If you can undermine that evidence, then I think a jury could be receptive to hearing other possible theories. But that's the first thing you got to deal with.
Dan Abrams, thanks very much.
I don't know, man. I just don't know. Like I said, I didn't want to do anything because I don't usually do these things. Once they get into the courts, that's when I hope and pray they got the right guy. I think they do, but I've seen guilty people walk before, so it's but I just think I have to call it like it is. I just think over the time span of this whole entire case, the law enforcement and prosecution, they've tried to keep this case quiet and tried to keep things under wraps, but they've done a horrible job, period. So, all right. So on a lighter note, let's go to the Tropics. And then I'll get out of here because I'm probably going to come on later and do more on the Connecticut River Valley guy. So right now we got a couple of problems. We got Ophelia that's probably about to make landfall here. It's almost a hurricane, so it's out here. It kind of came off the coast of Georgia here last week as a front, and once they get out into this Gulf Stream here, it's especially this time of the year, all you need is a circulation, and so here it is. We got an advisory here. Tropical storm conditions are expected along portions of southeastern and mid-Atlantic U.S. coast with a tropical storm warning area through Saturday night. Hurricane conditions are possible with hurricane watch area early Saturday. So this is the cone of probability here. These are the warnings and watches here. These are the coordinates if you're following at home, maximum sustained winds. So they're 4 miles away from being a hurricane. It's moving at a pretty good clip. It may get to hurricane status. I doubt it. But let's take a look at it. It's freezing out here. I don't know what I'm doing out here. It's absolutely freezing. So there's Ophelia. And it looks pretty impressive for, a couple of days old storm. It's definitely not, a major hurricane, that's for sure. But it's got some rotation here. And, you get some fair clouds already pushing into the Del Mar Peninsula here. Dry air here. Let's go to the water vapor. So you can see the center of circulation is right in about there. Maybe down a little bit here. So it's going to be a rain producer for sure. Maybe some gusty winds in North Carolina here. But these outer bands, obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some tornadoes pop up in here later tomorrow. You got a high ridge here. Let's go down a level here. There's the dry air here. There's some dry air in the system anyways, right in here. So again, yeah, this is going to be a rain producer for sure. Not like they need any more rain. check out the infrared. It's trying to formulate. It's it's trying to wrap itself around, but it's just not going to have enough time. But this water in here is really warm, so these outer bands are starting to form, but they'll just break off here. Nothing too impressive, that's for sure. So we have wind speed probabilities here, tropical storm force winds all the way out here. They'll extend a good 100 miles or so. You might get into the 90 mile an hour here. Doubt it. Like I said, this will be a major rain event here. Here's your rainfall totals. 6 to 10 in the yellow right in the center, or around the center anyways. All the dirty side will be on the west for sure, but you'll get a little bit of surge here. And as this moves up the coast here and then out, it'll create even more rain for Washington, Richmond, maybe even Philly. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some tornadoes form here, especially water spouts. All right, so let's go back to the basin here. Then I'll get out of here because I'm freezing. This is the next problem here. This is got a good possibility of forming here within the next 48 hours. This will be the next name, System OM, MNOP. So it'll be start with a P. I don't know what's going on here with this imagery, but so let's take a look at the Atlantic as a whole here. And there's our system right there. Looking much better organized today. This will be a tropical depression in no time. There's Ophelia right there. It was looking better earlier, and now it's just here's another wave coming off the coast here. So let's go actually, let's go to the sea surface temperatures first. So we got 30s in here. So this is nice and warm. This is Florida. This is the East Coast here. This is nice and warm in here. This is the Gulf Stream. So our storm is basically over these nice warm waters. That's why it, if it had more time, it would definitely be a hurricane for sure. But it's not going to have that much time, so it's just going to hit. But out here in the Atlantic, this is where our next invest is, right in here. And these waters are still definitely warm enough. But once it gets into these here, where you see the 30s, that's when it'll probably really intensify, just like Lee did. And once it gets right in here, you're going to see it intensify. So it's right in about here right now. So in about another day or so, it's probably going to be a hurricane. But let's go to the See if I can get some plots here. Oh. Oh my God. All right, so here's the forecast of these two systems here, and I'll stop this right here. So here's Ophelia. So this is Sunday. This is pretty good inland here, but it's going to do a little loop here. This looks like it's going to curve. Oh my God. Yeah, this is going to be an ocean storm here. And here's that other wave that's going to come off that we were just looking at. So this will be another ocean storm. We got some of these plotting to go to the Leeward Islands here, but most of them are turning this up into the Atlantic as the high pressure is over here. So it can't go through that. So it's just going to go around it this way. So they're going to take in a hard right once it gets into this parallel here. Okay, that's it. Good. That's good news. All right, so I'm going to get out of here. Anybody that's watching, thank you for watching. I'm going to try to get back on here a little later, but it's not going to be outside because it's absolutely freaking freezing out here. To do some more on the Connecticut River Valley Killer. I got another case to look at up in Maine that Cold Truth's been talking about. That. But other than that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for watching. If you could hit the like and subscribe, that'd be great. If you don't, that's fine. Sorry I lost my volume here during this live, but it is what it is. I'm an idiot. So everybody, thank you. Have a good night, and we'll see you later. Let me play my outro. And let's just hope for the best in the Delphi thing. So I'll see you guys later.